Welcome to A-Zenith, where we explore life in Dubai one letter at a time. We're authentic, unfiltered, and unapologetic. I'm your host, Bilal Mohammed, and today we're diving into A for adaptability, one of the most essential traits for success. To bring this concept to life, we have an incredible guest, Kanessa Muluneh. Her story is a shining example of how adaptability can transform your life. From her beginnings as a part-time nurse to leading a multi-million-dollar business empire in Dubai, Kanessa's journey is nothing short of extraordinary. So let's have a chat with her today. Hello, Kanessa.
Hi, Bilal. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
All good. All good.
So I just want to preface this by saying this is the second time I'm talking to Kanessa. The first time, I could not post that audio because I sounded and looked horrible. So
yes, now I can confirm that.
So thank you for coming back. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me back.
Like I mentioned, you have such an incredible story. And from hearing our conversation last time, I actually had time to think about it and actually think you have an amazing story. So for the people that don't know you, could you maybe just tell me a bit about yourself and go for it.
Okay. So my name is Kanessa. I was born in Ethiopia. At the age of 3, my parents decided to move. Well, it's not move. They fled the country. And I basically grew up in the Netherlands. And so when people think about the Netherlands, they basically think it's just Amsterdam and nothing else. Well, there is actually more.
Yeah.
I was brought up in the south. So it's like literally bordering Belgium. So it was a different culture than what people know from the Dutch culture. It was a good upbringing, I must say. We were the typical immigrant family, although my parents were separated when I was 4. I think they just couldn't manage, the lifestyle, and it was a lot. And obviously they went through a lot. But besides that, I think I had a pretty good life. And it was just, I think, the typical immigrant lifestyle where you were forced almost to grow up in, in two different cultures, in 2 worlds, I would like to say, actually. And when you go to university, you're kind of forced to become either a doctor, engineer, lawyer. I think it's still like that, and there are no other options. I mean, luckily, I didn't have any talents when it comes to art or music, because that would be an absolute no. And that was my life. And I eventually chose to go to university and study medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to medical school. It was cute, I guess. It was just not my dream. It was not my dream.
Yeah.
And it was my parents' dream. And, honestly, looking back, if I would have to do it again, I would still do the same thing, because they deserved that. Mm-hmm. They went through so much just for me that I think it was fair to make their dreams come true as well. So I went to university. I kept going until I had 1 degree, enough for them to say and tell the world that my daughter is a doctor.
Yeah.
So I think I did that. But that's it. I think it was year 4, I discovered that this was not for me.
Okay.
Although I respect doctors a lot, the knowledge, I still use it till this day. I mean, the other day, my daughter had a bleeding nose, and I was like, her dad was freaking out, and I was like, calm down. There's nothing going on. Just do this and this and this. Yeah. You'll be fine. So I still use the knowledge, just not in a hospital. So yeah, that's my life story in a nutshell.
It's funny you say that, because I think also as you can tell, my parents are not from the UK. So they also wanted us to grow up and have the best education, the best life. And my sister's a pharmacist. My brother, he did actuarial science. So a very strong family. So when I was growing up, I was thinking, what do I want to do? What am I good at? So I started my A-levels doing biology, chemistry, maths. And I very quickly realized that I'm not good at science. And I have no idea what I'm doing. Chemistry was like a mind. It was just had no idea about it. And then I was like, I'm really good at writing. I'm a very good writer, and I really enjoy geography. So I did I changed my A-levels. I redid them again, and I did geography, sociology, a lot of written subjects. And I found that from that I was really excelling. I was really good at it, and I came out with really good grades. And then I was going to go to university, but I decided that wasn't the best path for me. So yeah, and that's amazing how you had one career and then you did that, you worked through it, and then you changed to something which is, I think, even better to a global audience. So just touching on that, you worked as a nurse, you said, and then you moved to Dubai, and you're now running a multi-million-dollar business empire. So that's an incredible leap. Like, what motivated you to take that first step? Because obviously from nursing to business is very different.
Yeah, so I worked as a nurse. During my studies, I was eligible to work as a nurse. So I worked in hospitals. I must say that was awesome, especially at the emergency room. The things that you see is, I still, one day when I'm older, those are the stories that I tell my grandchildren. So that was a very cool experience. And also the moment, during the internships, that was the moment where my journey started. It started actually very silly or simple, I would say. It was a professor one day, he asked me like, Kanessa, write this paper for me, find a problem, anything in the work environment and see if you can fix that problem. I was like, okay, sure. It was a challenge and I discovered that I love challenges and I think he saw that as well. So I went back to the work. It was a hospital, not really big hospital, but more like a clinical little branch, I would say, from a larger hospital branch. I went back to work and one thing I noticed was that, doctors mostly are men, but everything around, or everyone, let's say, around doctors were mostly female. From nurses to assistants to even the cleaning team, mostly, not all, mostly were women. And I noticed that every time, a woman from the environment felt sick, or the family or kids, anyone was sick, or there was something going on at home, it was her sacrificing her time to be at home to care for family or whoever it was, even for herself.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, well, in that case, let's say if your kid is sick, why not just stay at home and still do your work? And this is 10 plus years ago, it wasn't as common. I think now it's more common, but then nobody would come with an idea like that because you just had to go to your office or to your work and do your job.
Exactly.
In my mind, it was just as simple as redirecting the phone, because they do consultation through phone, and having something to log into a system, and that's it. Voila, it's the same thing that you do in the hospital as well. Well, it turned out it wasn't that simple. Redirecting the phone was one thing, easily done, but getting access to the medical files was a whole different ballgame, and I wasn't prepared for that as well. But that was my solution to the problem. And the professor also challenged me, like, Kanessa, it's a good solution, but if you can make it work, I will give you extra points. I was like, okay, let's do it. And that's how the ball started rolling. And that was the solution to a problem that I found. And eventually I managed to get access to the medical files and I turned it into an actual product. So a business.
Amazing.
I was 20 years old, 21 when I started this. And I sold it less than a year later to a big insurance company.
I think what really stands out to me when I spoke to you last time and from reading up about you is that you like to embrace change a lot. Like you just mentioned that you take risks and you embrace change. So how have you developed your mindset to be able to adapt so easily?
I think when you're very young, you have nothing to lose. What was there to lose, I was living in a dorm. Worst case scenario, I had to go back to my mom. And, it's that bad. In my case, it wasn't that bad. So I had not much to lose. It's also, I was naive. Although I felt at the time that I knew a lot. I felt like a big boss because I managed to get access to something that nobody had access to. So, but I didn't know much, It was very, because of I was naive. Yes. Because of that, I allowed myself to do things that I wouldn't do now, if that makes sense. Yeah. Because right now I have more responsibilities, so I wouldn't take certain steps. I wouldn't. I think me being young was definitely a reason why I was fearless enough because I was going up against like companies, I was this small fish going up against insurance companies that actually tried to stop me. I was talking to men in suits. As an immigrant, you are scared of the men. These are very intimidating men. And I was intimidated also. But luckily, I had my dad, who was quite financially smart. And I met my now husband in the same moment. And he is actually the kind of man that I was dealing with. So he was that man in suit.
Yeah.
He just happened to be an accountant, and he was like, oh, you just have to say this and this, it will be fine. Or you just have to act like this. So it helped. It helped.
So you manifested your husband, essentially.
It was quite useful in that process. He was actually, but sometimes I wonder if I would have gotten this far in the process if I wouldn't have met him. But it just helped me. It was like my mental support. So yes, you could say it was a manifestation. Fine, yes.
And that's so beautiful. And how long have you been in Dubai now?
And almost 3 years.
Okay. How are you finding it?
It's amazing. It's amazing. You know, I'm a mom of 3. I grew up in Holland, which I love, but things have changed a lot in Europe. It's not the same upbringing I had. I moved here for, you could say, the safety of the kids, the future of the kids, of safety for the kids, I had to say.
I think Dubai has a very good way of making people feel safe, and the community is there. So especially if you live in like a gated community, or you live with a group of people like the Springs, or like you live in an area like that.
Yes.
Very much like community orientated. Like I was speaking to a friend the other day, and she was saying that her cat unfortunately passed away. So she was putting all her stuff outside for someone to take. And she lives in a community like the Greens and Springs. And she said that someone left a bag of chocolates on her door. She goes, I'm really sorry for your loss. Here's some chocolates. So there's a very nice community there, and I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
That's one thing I really love about Dubai. But obviously Dubai also has its the other side of the beauty that you see on screen and on social media. So what's been the biggest cultural and professional kind of adjustment you've had to make when you first moved here?
I think that the first thing that you mentioned, we just got back from traveling. We went to the US. So when I lived in Holland, I obviously grew up there. Somehow, you know, it's not super dangerous, but it's not as safe as Dubai, obviously. But I was guarded, and you adjust to what might happen, if that makes sense. So in Dubai, you let go all of your guards, and you just let go of everything, and you're basically living your life without worrying if someone would, or you don't expect anything, let's say.
Yes.
So we traveled to the US, and we landed there, and you were actually, I was still, in my mind, I was still like free and just, you know, not worrying about anyone doing anything, until I saw someone walking with a gun, and I was like, oh, wait, this is
Just
what? Yeah, certain states, they just literally walk with a gun as if it's like an accessory.
Is that normal?
Apparently it is. You know, and we went into the store to get milk for my baby. Okay, so we went as a family inside that store, and I looked to my left, and I was like, oh, I have 3 options for milk, and I have 20 options for guns. I could literally buy them together. It was like checking out to do that. And I was like, okay, so it's a different environment. Obviously, people need them. And yeah, I mean, they use them as well. We know that.
Yeah.
So I had to switch. And I don't know what's worse, living in an environment like the US and having, you know, being that fearful that you carry a gun 24/7, and just, you know, I get it, for protection, you have to be safe.
Yeah, of course.
Is that better? Does that prepare you for the worst? And does that make your life better? Or is it just us here being worryless, living our life, and then the moment you step out, you're basically, I think people can also smell that you are a target.
Yeah. I will say, whenever I go home to London, because in Dubai, like, you can leave your phone on the cafe and just like go to the bathroom or something, or leave your laptop out and no one will touch it. In London, I constantly leave my phone on the table, and I keep forgetting that I can't leave my phone out. I have to take it with me.
Exactly.
There's something like that I find really crazy, and that's one of the biggest challenges I faced. It's like now when I come home to London, I have to make sure that everything's on my person. I have my wallet in my pocket. It's just a matter of safety, I think.
Yeah, and I feel like in Dubai, you are used to that safety, and it's amazing, in all honesty. But the moment you step out, you actually have to remind yourself constantly, like, oh, I cannot leave my bag there. Even with the kids, we traveled to Memphis. My son's name is Memphis, and it was his birthday, so we surprised him by going to Memphis, Tennessee.
Love that.
And I went somewhere by myself, and I wanted to take an Uber back, and the people there, while I was ordering, were like, are you sure? It's dark outside and you're by yourself. You cannot just go in an Uber. And I was like, what do you mean?
God.
They were telling me all these horror stories, like what could happen and what actually happened recently. And I was like, oh, well, great. Here I am in the middle of, I don't know what, in Memphis by myself. And I had to call my husband. He woke my kids up to come and get me. And I was like, wow,
It's crazy.
it's a luxury in a way, but also makes me think like, oh, if my kids ever decide to study or go somewhere else and live their lives, they have to step out of this bubble.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it? You kind of have to.
Yeah, it is. Sometimes I feel like I'm locking them up in this bubble, and the moment they step out, they're going to be depressed for I don't know how long when they realize that the world just doesn't work this way.
I think one thing about Dubai is very much, I don't know how you feel, but being a single person, it's very much a traveller city. Like you go there to work for a good amount of time, and then you end up going back to your home country. So how do you find it? Obviously, I don't know if you've been to Dubai as a single person, but do you see any differences there? And what about there?
I think if you're single, life is definitely more challenging in Dubai. I think it depends on what kind of person you are, but people come here for a reason. Everyone. For me, I love that because I'm very private with my family. So I have the people around me that support me and, tell me the right things whenever I need to hear them. So whenever I step out of the house, I don't need or expect people to give me that attention. Yeah. So I only go to people when I need them, and mostly it's for business. And after that, we part ways and be like, so if you're alone, if you need social contact or you're looking for, a certain person to connect with, it might assume that it's really challenging and it can be isolating.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the biggest things that I faced, and I had to be adaptable, was the isolation and the loneliness of Dubai. I think because I moved by myself, I had to make friends very quickly. That's how I kind of created my group or my circle of people around me. Mm-hmm. So I found that was the biggest thing I had to adapt to, because I came from a big family. I'm one of 4 siblings. My oldest sister has 5 children. So my brother just had a baby. We're a really big expanding family. So for me, coming into a world where I had to be adaptable to be I'm going to live by myself. I'm going to buy a flat. I'm going to pay rent. I'm going to do all that good stuff. That was the most challenging part of adapting to that life. Because in London, I'm so lucky I don't pay rent. Yeah. I pay for much. Obviously, about immigrant family, they don't charge you rent. So
yeah, I think you also come from a very rich culture, and then you basically in Dubai you go to paying rent, living I would call it the societal lifestyle, where the society would applaud you for it, but in all honesty, it's empty, and it's like your life is not about paying bills and just 100%. Sitting in a small, or let's say between 4 walls. That's not it. Even though we think that's it, it's not it. Once you have it. When I sold my first company, that was my first contact with actual money, with the doors that opened all of a sudden. I thought this was it. This was now all the luck in the world would just come through those doors and I would be the happiest woman. And I was for a short time because I thought this was it. Society is going to applaud for me and they'll be like, wow, she did it. And it worked for a short while. And then you'll be like, now what? Yeah. Now nothing. There's nothing fulfilling.
Exactly.
My parents were just living the same lifestyle. I wasn't doing something fulfilling in life. So I get it. If you come from a rich cultural background, you're just following the mass. You can lose touch with your identity and what really makes you happy. I did as well, I really had to. One of the best things about moving to Dubai for me was the fact that I was just 3 hours away from Ethiopia, so my home country.
Yeah.
Which was easier access. Before that, I think it was 8 years before I went back. Let's say the last time I touched ground there in Ethiopia. Yeah. So when I moved to Dubai, the first thing I did was book a ticket, and just in the morning I stepped on a plane, and same morning I was in Ethiopia, and I was like, wow. And I didn't do much there. I was there speaking my language, connecting with who I am and the way my parents, the smell that you have in the house, it was there. The way my mom behaved, I saw all the women behave like that. it felt like it didn't was actually home.
I love that. That's so beautiful. I think, yeah, I've never been back home to Pakistan, so I feel like
It will completely change you.
yeah,
Were you born in London?
London, yeah,
So
born
it
and
will
raised.
completely change you. It depends, obviously, how connected you are with your culture there at home. I
Mm.
would assume your parents are quite traditional with certain things.
Yeah, for sure.
They are. The moment you step on the plane, actually,
Yeah.
or out of the plane, you will smell certain things. I cannot explain. You will smell
No, I get you.
that you've been missing for a while. You start to understand why your parents talk a certain way, act a certain way. A lot of things, puzzles are falling into place, and you're like, oh, and you start to understand
Mm.
even certain traumas that you had from home, or it's really healing.
Yeah. Oh, I love. Yeah, if it's healing, book me on a plane. Let's go.
No, you should really go. Let me tell you, I've been to Pakistan twice now, or actually, yeah, twice recently. And the first time you're gonna land there, you'll be shocked because
Yeah.
the culture is different. Obviously, not too much for you, but it's a lot of people. It's crowded. It's like, am I seeing a cow and 5 motorcycles and 3 cars in one lane? Like, it was a lot. But then after a few days, once you start processing, you're like, wow, it's
Yeah.
it's really rich in culture, and it's not like the world portrays Pakistan. It's an amazing country.
It's funny because, sorry, my grandma's having her house redone. So she's moved in with us for a little while. And my grandma's very traditional. She's born and raised in Pakistan and then came over to the UK and and then I had my mum and then so my whole family's been here. My grandma obviously misses home a lot. So to make her feel a bit more comfortable and just have a bit of fun, during the evenings we tend to watch videos about Pakistan. So we watch about the beautiful landscapes and how stunning it is, and all these vloggers are going there saying you have to visit Pakistan. And for me, watching that has been I need to definitely visit.
You should really, really, really visit. It will also teach you, because I think in business, I don't know if you ever plan to start a business, but I think Pakistan or South Asian countries are the next big thing. And the reason why is because they're developing. I mean, the amount of people in India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, the population alone is quite a lot. And people are getting, they're not as poor as they used to be. Let's take a look at China. I think India, Pakistan could be the next China.
Yeah.
So I think whatever it is, and everything is cheap now. Let's say if you want to open a store, the investment is not that much, but because of the amount of people, let's say you invest £10,000 to open a store, beautifully do your marketing, PR, everything. 10,000 is not much. That same store would cost you 10 times more in London.
Exactly.
And you can do it in Pakistan, let's say, with a population of 250 million people.
Yeah.
There is no chance that you will lose money. No chance. Because even if you would sell for the lowest price, the amount of customers that you can reach is insane. And you need much money for advertisements, because one billboard would not cost you that much. And the amount of people that see that billboard is quite a lot. Facebook ads or Meta ads is the cheapest of the cheapest in these regions.
Wow.
A lot of people. Yeah, it's US, for example, super expensive. And, in Pakistan, let's say for, I don't know, £1 or $1, you can reach hundreds of people, maybe thousands. Super cheap because, not many companies use ads there.
That's so interesting. Think of that as a business place.
And you, as a foreigner, as a let's say diaspora, they adore you. They're gonna adore you because you're living a certain dream life.
Yeah.
That they aspire. So of course your product will be more popular than a local product.
I'm taking Zenith to Pakistan. That's my next thing.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, 100%. I think you've mentioned this a lot in our conversation, but for me, adaptability is such a powerful skill. And I think you just demonstrated that so beautifully, talking about Pakistan and how diverse it is, and it's potentially the new place to be to invest and work. So if we dig a little bit deeper, how do you think adaptability, if it was it key to your success? And how do you maintain adaptable?
Yeah, so adapting is actually my secret. Sticking to Pakistan here, it was a different world for me. Although not super different, the Ethiopian culture the values are quite the same, but everything was so different. The first time I arrived, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to talk about I'm not going to talk about me, let's say. I'm just going to ask questions and adapt in this case to whatever they're telling me. So before I left, I was like, what can I wear? What kind of clothes are acceptable? And Pakistanis are very the way they treat guests, it's so, I don't know, it's one of the best things I've experienced. They do everything for guests. So the first answer I got when I asked about that question about the way I should dress, they were like, oh no, do whatever you want, you can dress however you want. I think as a European that would come across as, oh, I can wear my hot pants, I can wear my short skirts, and I can do whatever I want. Because of my background, the Ethiopian background, I understood that it meant like dress comfortably, bring whatever you have, but obviously adjust to the local standard. And they're quite modest. Meaning that I don't have to wear an abaya or a shalwas kameez, but I could wear, or I don't know, some
I love
white...
the way you just said that, by the way. That was perfect.
Yeah, that's one of the things I addicted. So I literally shopped before I went to Pakistan, got my bias, and I asked questions. I didn't do anything that I usually do at home, until I was in my hotel room. So to draw attention. It's much easier if you adjust to them to get more information and to get to your destination quicker. Because when you present yourself as someone that needs help, people tend to help, even if that wasn't their mission or that wasn't what they were planning on doing. People naturally help.
Exactly.
When your knowledge is, how do you say this in a nice way? So if you come across less smarter than them, people have the tendency to inform you or to provide you, overflow you with information. And that information is key when you are new to a new environment,
Yeah. Apart from Dubai, have you had a specific example of when you've had to be adaptable and you had to like pivot or change your plan? For example, could you maybe talk through an example you've experienced?
Yeah, well, a specific example would definitely be kids' parties. I know you didn't see that coming. But raising kids here, I mean, in my days and in Holland, the way we celebrate kids' parties was literally at home, few snacks, party, and music on, and that's it. Yeah. Here, I had to adjust to a certain standard.
Yeah.
But obviously, it took me 2 invites maybe to learn like what happens here. How do they celebrate kids' parties? It's quite extravagant compared to what I know. But again, it's about me. There's not I chose to bring my kids here to bring up kids in this environment. So I have to adjust. And it's much easier to just adjust instead of being like, oh no, this is not how we do it. So everybody has to adjust to our standards. It doesn't work.
It's funny you say that because growing up, parties for me was like, have your friends around your house. In London, we have these biscuits called party rings. I don't know if you know what they are.
Yes, I know them.
Yeah. We have like party rings on the table, like a cake, and then like we just like play games or something. So yeah, so right. I think that was something.
Yeah, like the budget I spent on my daughter's birthday last year was the budget for literally all my 18 birthdays. Like it's it's different,
Yeah.
And it's just adjusting to others in general, whether it's business life, it's much easier also for your mental state.
Yeah, definitely.
And my dad once said, what's 1 + 1? And you would say 2, but there are people that would say 5 or 12. He's like, just nod, just say yes and move on. Why do you care so much? Why are you on trying to, convincing them that no, it should be 2. Why do you care? Just continue your life.
Exactly. I think going back to like business and adaptability, Dubai is very much a global hub of innovation, and things move very quickly, and there's trends coming out all the time. Like I'm sure you saw the Dubai chocolate, which went crazy all over the world, and things like that are coming out every day. So how do you as a businesswoman kind of stay adaptable for your businesses? Because I know you have various ones. So how do you stay adaptable?
Okay, what I'm going to say sounds cliche, but it's Dubai. Like here, more than anywhere, you have to stay true to yourself. You have to stay original. A lot of people lose their originality and I feel like the Dubai chocolate is one example where somebody came up with something original and it went viral simply because it's hard to find something that is unique. People tend to copy, even though they say they're original. It's not that original, you know? It's original in your world probably, but it's for the outside world. I think if you're like honestly like super different, and I know people are scared to be different, especially here, because people feel like they need to be accepted by certain groups or by certain people. Believe me, you don't. You don't have to. The more you actually dare to be individual, like a different person or the way you are, the more you show yourself and go up against people and be like, I don't care, I'm gonna stick to what I like. If you have that mentality, they'll notice you. Believe me. Have a little thick skin, have a backbone. That's all you
Yeah,
need.
no, I love that. And I think that touches really beautifully with my next point, which is like about mindset. So you also have to have a very different mindset when you're looking at adaptability and being able to change very quickly to your situation. So particularly in your view in what you've seen and what you've done in the past, how do you stay positive and like resilient through all this adaptability? Because it must be quite a difficult like shift, right? Coming from the Netherlands and Ethiopia,
Yeah.
doing all of that. So how do you positively change that and how do you become resilient through all of that?
Look, the only way to be strong is to go through the things that you don't like. You know, you have to do certain things in order to taken that skin. There's no other way, unfortunately. So moving to Dubai, we had no idea what was going to happen. We moved here, and of course, you face things that you don't like. But the only way to start liking that specific downside, let's say, is by doing it again and again and over in order to adapt and to process basically and learn how to deal with that. So I would say Dubai can be super toxic in a way if you keep adapting. You don't have to adapt with everything.
Yeah.
Like I said, stay true to yourself. And that contradicts with the first part of what my advice, because I said, just adapt and go with the flow. That doesn't mean you adapt, you change yourself, because when the door closes, you come back to who you are, center back, and leave the outside noise outside. But you can, adapt to the outside world whenever you choose to step in it. So when I open my door, I go to a certain place, I just play along, come home to who I am. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
No, not at all.
I know in the Dutch culture, they would not appreciate me saying that, because they're like, oh no, you have to stay the same person and you have to stick to who you are.
Yeah.
No, you don't. Believe me, you don't. That would drive you crazy. So you can just split that lifestyle or life, I would say, behind closed doors and outside, and just center back at home. Otherwise, it can be really toxic to be like, oh, there's a new trend, let me follow that trend. Oh, there's a new this. All of a sudden, I have to change myself and act like this in order to be accepted. You don't have to. You don't.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for being on today's episode of A-Zenith. Genuinely really enjoyed our conversation, so thank you so much for doing this the second time. I promise it's not going to happen again, but I just want to say to everyone watching, like Kanessa has mentioned, adaptability isn't just about adapting to what's around you. It's about doing what's right for you and making sure that you feel empowered to make the right change and the right decisions. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to leave a review, let us know what you enjoyed, and stay adaptable, stay curious, and stay thriving.